beat the Celtics, overtime, great. This is from after that game.
This got interesting. We'll come back to 4-0. You got the friends here.
You feel me? We back in the building. Y'all thought we was gone. My man Jay Lynn was doing his thing. Jay Hill doing his thing.
Nick out there hitting his free throws. You know how he do it. You know, Jay Lynn going to the basket like it ain't nothing to it but to do it. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, Mike, man, you got a nice suit on today, too, man.
Appreciate that, Swag.
You got that.
Wow.
Now, would that happen if you were there? Would there be a celebration?
Welcome back to Ball Don't Lie here on Penn State Sports Night. We're probably going to get this on a Friday night or maybe Thursday. I don't know, because we're recording this on Thursday night. It was Wellness Day yesterday here at Penn State. So, we had to get that wellness in. No spring break. Awesome. But anyways, though, we're back talking hoops like we always do.
Yeah, it's great to be back. I feel really well after my much-needed day off yesterday. I spent a lot of it driving, but that's okay.
Yep, much wellness all around. You went to a Phillies game, though, Matt. I mean, that must have been pretty fun.
It was pretty fun, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, and speaking of going to games, the NBA expects to have full arenas next season, the 2021-2022 season. So I guess that's partially good news because that means that we are getting over this coronavirus pandemic, 1 day, 1 week at a time. Matt, do you think this is realistic? Do you actually think it will be fans at full capacity, or you think this is just a pipe dream?
I think it's more realistic than I would have thought of maybe 3 months ago. I think the NFL and college football are aiming for the same thing as well in terms of getting people in the stands at full capacity. In terms of maybe it being realistic, I'm not sure yet. It depends on how many people get vaccinated. I'm sure there's still a lot of people that are anti-vaxxers out there. So we'll see in terms of, full capacity. But I think we're definitely trending towards the right direction.
I think so, too. Again, it's hard to tell. Now, the start of the next NBA season, let's not forget, is going to be in October most likely. So there is some ways away until that happens. I'm sure a lot of progress will be made regarding vaccines and testing and stuff like that in the coming months, if you will. But, of course, we've been turning our attention a bit toward college basketball just because March Madness was a thing. But now it is over. Baylor ended up winning it all, basically smacked around Gonzaga on Monday night, 86-70. Also beat Houston in the Final Four. And Gonzaga, of course, had that crazy game against UCLA. It resulted in Jalen Suggs, game winner, jumping on the scorer's table like he Kobe Bryant or Dwayne Wade. Matt, what did you think about March Madness this year? Did it live up to your expectations?
It did, just because we could have a March Madness this year. Anything was going to be, live up to the expectations. The Jalen Suggs shot in the Final Four was one of the best shots of all time in college basketball. The NCAA championship was kind of lackluster, but Baylor kind of kicked their butts up and down the court for the entirety of the game. It seemed like Baylor had 1 point through the first 4 or 5 minutes of the game. Or that was Gonzaga, excuse me. But Baylor really smacked them around, like you said. They definitely deserved to win the championship. They shot the lights out from three, so definitely deserved it. And their women's team won the national championship in 2019 too, so they're on quite a run.
Yeah, and Baylor, they didn't win a national championship in quite some time, if at all, if I'm not mistaken. So Baylor, I gotta give them credit. After watching the Final Four, I thought entering it, I'm like, I think we even both said I think Gonzaga's gonna win. But after watching that Baylor game, I'm like, I don't think Gonzaga has a shot. I thought they were going to kill them entering that Monday night. I didn't pick them to win at all, so I'm not going to say, I knew the whole time. But Baylor's just too fast. They got so many dogs on that team, and Gonzaga was just slow and soft. And I was like, I don't know. If Baylor's playing like this, I don't think Gonzaga's got a shot, and that's what we saw on display.
Yeah, and Gonzaga, they were coming off a tough and emotional game against UCLA. UCLA played them really tough, probably tougher than they expected to be played. So they were probably pretty tired from that game, emotionally and physically. So I just feel like they didn't have enough gas in the tank for Monday night.
Yeah, first off, that was a phenomenal game. Gonzaga UCLA, like we talked about, ended in dramatic fashion. But all around, that was just probably one of the best basketball games I've seen in a really, really long time. But speaking about college basketball, there's even more news that was maybe bigger than the national championship. Roy Williams no longer going to be the head coach at UNC. He is retiring, and Hubert Davis, the longtime assistant, will be taking over. Now, Roy Williams, one of the most accomplished head coaches in college basketball history or basketball history in general. Had 485 wins and 163 losses with the Tar Heels. And then also, let's not forget, he coached at Kansas, his alma mater, for 15 seasons. So he finished with an overall record of 902 wins to only 264 losses as a head coach. Won 3 national championships in 05, 09, and most recently 2017, all with the Tar Heels. But Matt, what do you think about Roy Williams? What does he leave behind with his legacy?
Well, he obviously leaves behind a huge legacy. 902 wins is fantastic. Right up there with Coach K, right behind him. He's been a phenomenal coach for many years. Definitely going to, head into the sunset here with retirement. Fantastic coach, even better guy by all accounts. Happy he's able to retire on his own terms.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he's 70 years old. He's up there in age, but it caught me off guard. I didn't know he was retiring. Like, I saw the news, I was like, wow, that was nuts. But Hubert Davis, who may not be, super well known, but if you are a UNC fan, this guy's been on the bench. Roy Williams, co-pilot, if you will, for the last 9 seasons. I think he was super fit for the job. He knows exactly what he's walking himself into. Has experience playing in the NBA. Was also his alma mater is UNC. He played there. And I underquote Roy Williams, which is a little nuts. But yeah, he is a phenomenal replacement in my opinion. They are probably able to keep all their recruits and stuff like that too, because all those players are probably familiar with Hubert Davis just like they are with Roy Williams. I think it was a very good move from North Carolina.
I couldn't agree more, Hunter. I think it's a fantastic hire, especially as, like you said, it's in-house hire. I think they're definitely going to be able to keep the recruits. And he's the first black head coach in North Carolina history, which is a big, big deal down there. He will live up to the expectations. Hopefully their fans will treat him nicely. But they should be getting a good coach and have a good team for here on out.
Yeah, I mean, there's Dean Smith. There's Roy Williams. He has some big shoes to fill, but I think Davis is ready to rise up to the occasion. Also, too, Sean Miller got fired after 12 seasons at Arizona. Now, he had a lot of those scandals, and I'm sure that had something to do with it. But Arizona really hasn't been all that competitive since, like, the mid-2010s when they had some of those teams with Aaron Gordon and Stanley Johnson and TJ McConnell. So they had some good runs for a little bit. He was there for 12 seasons, but I think Arizona made the right call pulling the leash.
I think so, too, especially with all the scandals behind him. Since the DeAndre Ayton season, Arizona has been extremely irrelevant, which, they got DeAndre Ayton illegally anyway. So ever since the FBI wiretap situation, thank God the FBI is all over the NCAA basketball world. But anyways, I think Sean Miller was definitely time to go. They can say it was for performance reasons, but I'm sure it had a lot to do with, the scandals as well.
Honestly, both. I mean, Arizona's been pretty bad recently, so I think it's safe to say that, the two go hand in hand. Speaking of which, shout out Paul Pierce, I guess. I don't know if I'm allowed to say exactly what he did, but he definitely took it to the gram, maybe went a little too far with his incident, and he ended up getting fired from ESPN. Matt, what was your opinions on it? Do you think he deserved to get fired? Was it a fireable offense?
I'm going to go with yeah. Anytime you're smoking weed on IG Live, man, I don't think ESPN's going to be okay with that, especially with booties behind him. But I think it was definitely fireable. And honestly, I'm glad. He sucked as an analyst anyway. He was pretty terrible. He would just say the most ridiculous things to kind of get his name out there. I'm okay with it.
Yeah, basically like the Charles Barkley nephew of ESPN, I guess. That's Charles impersonation, but there's only one. There's only one Charles Barkley. I'm sure he'll get hired somewhere else because, like you said, the dude's a freaking goofball. To get paid that much money, just say literally whatever you want on national television. I guess that's the ultimate dream. I agree. I was a little shocked he got fired just because, like, if it was a regular employee who didn't play in the NBA and wasn't like a Hall of Famer like Paul Pierce, I'd be like, oh yeah, that guy's getting fired or that woman's getting fired. But I was like, I don't know, they might let Paul Pierce get a pass here, but they didn't. I respect it. Obviously, Mr. Mouse didn't really want anything to do with that. He's like, get out of here. You're not kid friendly. We want people really, represent ESPN and our integrity, I guess. So I guess good for the Disney crew to stick up to Paul Pierce.
Yeah, we want people to be able to represent the ears well. So Paul Pierce is obviously not representing the ears well, so they had to kick him out of the resort.
Yep, that's pretty much what happened. Hashtag free Paul Pierce, I guess. Anyways, though, let's look at Kawhi Leonard. It is looking like he's probably going to re-sign with the Clippers. Let's not forget, he is a free agent entering this offseason. But I don't know about you, Matt. I'm pretty sure he was going to re-sign with the Clippers. I would have been shocked if he went somewhere else.
Yeah, LA is the place he wants to be, man. I'm pretty sure this year is an opt-out, right? So he could theoretically stay with the contract, but I'm sure he'll opt out just to try to get more money. And I think the Clippers will gladly give it to him. I don't think he's going anywhere. I think him and PG-13 are locked in there for quite some time.
Yep, and Paul George did sign a contract extension before the season started. They both had that opt-out. Paul George agreed to it. Kawhi didn't. But I believe they will also both be back there, I'm sure, like you said, Matt. But anyways, though, keeping it with the star players, Kevin Durant actually came back last night, dropped 17 points in 19 minutes, did not miss a single shot in typical KD fashion against the Pelicans. And also Joel Embiid, too, looking like he's going to be healthy and ready to make this run for the Sixers. Matt, what are your thoughts about these teams? I mean, the rich keep getting richer, I guess, and we're probably going to finally see both these teams at their full form.
Yeah, I mean, I hope the Nets aren't at full form because they're just such an annoying team to watch. I really don't want to play them in the playoffs as a Sixers fan. But Kevin Durant looked great. I mean, yeah, I expect nothing less from the Slim Reaper. He's really good. Had a couple really silky smooth mid ranges. And then Joel Embiid has been, fantastic in his 2 games. His first game against Cat, he did get dunked on, but we got the win there. The Sixers and Embiid got his feet back under him a little bit. And on Tuesday night against Boston, he absolutely dominated the Celtics because they have 0 big men. They tried to put Taco Fall on him, which did not end well at all. He just dominated that game. He dominated the Celtics. The Sixers swept the Celtics for the first time since 2001, I believe, which is a long, long time. So, Embiid's looking great. Both teams are getting, like you said, full strength as we head towards playoffs.
Yep, and those are probably the 2 front runners to make it out of the East. So curious to see who obviously locks up the number 1 seed. And if these 2 teams face in perhaps the Eastern Conference Finals, could be a bloodbath. Could really honestly see it going either way. Looking at DeMar DeRozan, though, looking like he's taking a, quote, wide open approach to free agency. The Spurs have been struggling recently. They got rid of LaMarcus Aldridge. It seems like a team rebuilding for the future. I'm not sure DeMar DeRozan's part of that.
I don't think so either. I think he's probably looking at a team in the I would imagine in the Eastern Conference to try to shore up their front court. I think he'd be a good fit in New York with the Knicks. He would be a good fit elsewhere too. Maybe even a return to the Raptors. Who knows? But I think he'll covet some money in free agency. I don't know if he'll be worth all that money, especially since he's getting up there in age and he is pretty limited in terms of his shooting ability. He doesn't take a lot of threes. And in today's NBA, that's not necessarily something that teams look for. Teams want 3-point shooters, but I'm sure he'll still get paid handsomely.
I'm gonna say probably 25 to 30 a year. I'd be my guess for DeMar, unless the market's really that bad. But I'd probably say that's a fair number for DeMar DeRozan, in my opinion. Anyways, looking at Chris Paul, I thought this was pretty funny. Last night, he was drinking that secret stuff. He literally had a bottle of yellow fluid. It just said Chris's secret stuff. If you've ever seen Space Jam, you know what that's kind of about. I guess it worked because the Suns ended up beating the Jazz in overtime. So I don't know. I guess Chris Paul is really thinking one step ahead of everybody else. Maybe that's why he's able to play, so long into his career despite being up there in age.
Yeah, Chris Paul's low-key kind of a funny guy, man. He's not like outright funny, but he's like got some low-key jokes to him. I thought that was pretty funny as well. And anytime a team beats up on the Jazz, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I also thought that was pretty funny. Yeah, I mean, hey, he's got all those State Farm commercials and stuff. He's got his twin Cliff Paul, I guess. I don't know. Makes great commercials, but I remember one of my friend's dads is like, he's in all the commercials but hasn't won anything. I was like, oh. Yep. Yikes. Anyways, though, someone who has won a lot, and that's Shaquille O'Neal, he recently paid for a random person's engagement ring, and it kind of went viral. I believe he was in the state of Georgia, paid for a young man's engagement ring. I guess that's a pretty cool story to tell your future wife, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, Shaq's one of those people who just got stupid money flowing in. I mean, he's doing every sponsorship. He's on, I feel like he's on my television all the time. He's doing every commercial. Yeah, he accepts every commercial deal, man. And then TNT obviously is probably throwing a bag at him. Shaq's got money to spend, man, and probably paying for that engagement ring was nothing to him.
Probably not. He might have had like $10K in his pocket. It was just like, buy what you want. Anyways,
wait, but low key, here's something I just thought of. Okay. In this situation is if this video went viral, do you think the dude who was gonna proposing to his girlfriend or boyfriend, whatever, do you think they probably saw that when they were like, it ruined the surprise?
I don't know. Hopefully he got it off that night, but that's
Yeah.
not how it works.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hey, it's still a pretty cool story. I would,
Yeah.
if I was him, I'd be fine with it. Anyways, though, you know what the saying is, unless you haven't somehow watched Ball Don't Lie, this is your first time. It's okay. It shouldn't be, but that's fine. But whether you are or not, Matt, what is the motto here?
It is no team left behind.
No team left behind. Now we're going to go to our players of the week. We give every single week. I typically go with the most unthought of people, and same thing goes this week. But Matt, who's first on your list?
Yeah, I usually do the opposite. I go with probably the most notable people, people that probably deserve it. So the Eastern Conference Player of the Week this past week was Drew Holiday. He's who I'm starting my list off with. He got a huge extension this week, and he's been playing like he deserved it, even though I think it was a massive overpay by the Bucks. Nonetheless, the former Sixer has scored 24, 28, 22, 33, and 29 in his last 5 games, while shooting 62% from the field and 48% from three. The Bucks have won 3 out of those 5 games, and he's had to step up here with Giannis out a couple times this week with knee soreness. He's been playing really well.
He secured the bag, Matt. He signed a huge contract extension. A lot of people may have thought it was an overpay, but Drew Holiday is quite literally putting the money where his mouth is and has been absolutely hooping recently. And they're paying him to do what he does. And they made that huge. They gave up like 3 first-round picks for a reason, because Drew Holiday's a really freaking good basketball player. And for the Bucks, hopefully that's what puts them over the top in the East, and they're able to make it past the second round of the playoffs.
Yeah, especially if he can keep shooting like this. It's a perfect compliment to Giannis, especially the point guard position. Just a guy that can shoot, not going to clog up the lane, can create his own shot.
Absolutely. Drew Holiday is an absolute baller. Gets it done on both ends of the floor. Next on my list, I think he kind of stumbled into opportunity, but he has risen to the occasion because of it, and that's Kyra Lewis for the New Orleans Pelicans. Now, Josh Hart, he's going to be out for multiple weeks. So is Nickeil Alexander-Walker. So their backcourt behind Bledsoe and Lonzo Ball is a little slim right now. But Kyra Lewis has been awesome. Had a career-high 21 points against the Hawks. And with the increased playing time, a guy who went top 10 in the NBA draft this year, top 10. I forgot exactly what pick, but he was a lottery pick. Someone who I loved coming out of Alabama. I think Kyra Lewis is an extremely talented player, and I think his role will only continue to increase with this team.
Yeah, obviously he's going to get a lot of minutes with all the injuries down there in New Orleans. I feel like New Orleans always has a lot of injuries, and they're always kind of under the radar in terms of performance. But yeah, I mean, Kyra Lewis is really taking advantage of his opportunity. 21 points in 26 minutes in a 23-point loss, but still, gotta get those points out, man.
Yeah, he's getting those numbers up. Hey, I remember, I've been on some basketball teams too where I wasn't getting a whole lot of playing time. So if I ever got in, that ball was going up. And that's what Kyra Lewis is doing right now. So
gotta respect it, man.
I respect it. But Matt, who else is on your list?
The Western Conference Player of the Week this past week is Luka Doncic. He earned it. He has guided the Mavs to a 5-game winning streak before an ugly loss to the Rockets last night. He has scored at least 23 points in each of his last 6 games. He hasn't had to carry Dallas as much recently, which is good because the Mavs cannot win that way. But don't look now, but the Mavs are just 2 games out of the 6th seed, and we thought they were dead in the water just 3 months ago.
Yeah, Dallas had the talent. They had a really tough schedule to start the year. Seems like things are really clicking. Kristaps Porzingis is acclimated in that team. Although a lot of their players are playing really well recently, but of course Luka Doncic is always going to be the main catalyst there, one of the best players in basketball. I also have a European on my list, but it's not anyone of the name of Luka Doncic. That's Aleksej Pokusevski for the Oklahoma City Thunder as Matt rolls his eyes. Anyways, though, this is a team that's outwardly tanking, but for the bare minimum, they're letting their young players cook, and that is what Pokusevski's been doing, averaging 18 points per game, 3 assists, 5 rebounds, a block, and half a steal a game, and over 32 minutes per game. He's a really weird basketball player. He's 7 foot, but he probably weighs 140 pounds. But he has handles like a guard. He shoots the living blank out of the basketball. He's an interesting guy to watch, but has a lot of upside. So I actually think this is a nice pick that the Thunder made in the draft this year.
Yeah, I did see one clip of him. I think he tried to dunk on somebody the other day. It was either last night or a day before. He tried to dunk on somebody. He didn't do it, but it looked like he made it. It looked really cool. So shout out him. 7-footer with some handles reminds me of another foreign player who's really tall and has handles like a point guard.
Does it?
Ben Simmons. Defensive player. Yeah, basically the same player in my opinion.
Yeah. Simmons foreign. Anyways, though, who rounds out the list for you here?
Steph Curry. I mean, it feels like this guy makes my list every week, but he's just so good, man. I mean, it's too bad his team is booty butt buns. In his last 4 games, he has scored 32, 36, 37, and 41 points. And if he didn't do this, his team would lose by 50 points. No, seriously, the one game he didn't play in this week, the Warriors lost by 53 points to the Raptors. The Warriors are clinging to the 10th seed in the West, and he is literally the only reason why.
He really is. And if the Pelicans are able to rattle off some games, the Kings playing a lot better than people think recently. They might be in danger because Memphis is on a nice win streak. We talked about how good Dallas has been. Spurs have dropped a little bit in the standings, but still are a couple of games ahead of Golden State. They better watch out. They might even make the play-in.
Yeah, it's getting rough for the Warriors, man. It's getting really ugly. It's starting to look like the team that, struggled to win even 10 games last year without Steph Curry. So if Steph Curry's not putting forth, insane effort, the Warriors are not going to win.
Can't say I'm surprised. I've been saying it all year. Anyways, though, last but not least on my list is going to be Will the Thrill Barton for the Denver Nuggets. Now, he's not the best player on the team, but he's a guy when healthy can really go out there and get you a bucket, averaging just over 17 points per game this week. Go along with 4 assists, 6 rebounds, a little over 1 steal per game. Awesome shooting numbers as well, 45% from the field, 41% from 3, and 90.9% from the foul line. And Denver, this is a team that has thrived on depth and other guys that can really step up and they can go deep in their bag with the rotation. Will Barton really missed a whole lot of games last year, but I'm sure that Denver's happy to have him back this season.
Yeah, absolutely. And, even just quickly glancing into stats, the one thing that keeps, standing out to me, even in the games that he does not score a lot, his plus minus is way, way up there. He's only had 1 game in the negative, and that was, a 9-point win against Philadelphia, and it was -2. He's consistently been in the plus minus category in double digits. He's had plus 23, a plus 18, a plus 19. Guy's been balling. He's clearly very helpful to this team, very valuable to this team, even if it doesn't show up in the stat sheet.
Absolutely. And, transitioning to our next segment here is going to be the Denver Nuggets. They are on a 7-game win streak, and Will Barton's definitely, contributed to that a bunch. It's the longest win streak in the NBA. It has included Mike Malone having a full-on temper tantrum and getting ejected. I think he's one of the most underrated coaches in the NBA. I think he's fantastic. But anyways, though, this team overall has a little bit of a slow start this season, but definitely picking up stride. Now they're 4th place in the Western Conference. And I think, the head of the snake, if you will, is Nikola Jokic, who's finally untapping into his full potential, having the best year of his career, averaging just over 26 points per game, almost 9 assists, almost 11 rebounds per game. Also, the best PER, player efficiency rating in the NBA at 36.61. Matt, I feel like I know your answer to this, but do you think he's the front runner to win MVP right now?
It breaks my heart, Hunter, to say this, but I think he is, just because if Embiid had not missed those 3 weeks or whatever, I think he would still be the favorite, and he might even still be. But Jokic has been playing, absurd this season. He's really, like you said, untapped his full potential, and even just having the best ability is your availability. And Jokic has not missed a game at all this season, and he's been balling out, man. I mean, he's a triple-double machine. Especially for a guy who's as big as he is, to have the stats that he puts up every week, and have the Nuggets playing really, really well too. Getting them up out of the gutter a bit. They were around the 6 or 7 seed for a while. Now they're into the top 4 in the West. Obviously, with the Lakers struggling a little bit without LeBron and AD, but the Nuggets have really been playing well. I think if they were finished in the top 5 in the West, I think he's a lock for MVP.
Man, I can't believe you admitted that. But I have to agree. The MVP race has been as interesting as it's been in NBA history. You had LeBron, then you had Embiid, both of them missing a bunch of time. Kevin Durant was in there and he misses time. James Harden got traded during the season and he's in the conversation. Steph Curry's had a phenomenal season and the Warriors just stink, so it's hard to pick him. Giannis has probably had the best year of his career and he's probably not even going to win it after winning back-to-back MVPs. So it is lining up pretty nicely for Nikola Jokic to win it, but then something will probably happen. He doesn't win it, so I don't know.
Yeah, I think as long as he stays healthy, I think he's a shoo-in for the award. That doesn't mean I think Jokic is better than Embiid, because I don't. But I think he still wins MVP over him.
I still think Embiid has to prove it in the playoffs more first for me to say he's better. But anyways, though, the Nuggets were really, really busy at the trade deadline. They got Aaron Gordon from the Magic, JaVale McGee from the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now they are still acclimating to the team, of course, trying to figure out their roles. But how do you think these two additions really helps them out?
Well, I think it's great because Aaron Gordon's kind of filling that Jeremy Grant role of previous years for this Nuggets team. Obviously, I don't know if he's necessarily a better player than Jeremy Grant, but I think he's definitely more athletic, which is what the Nuggets desperately needed, especially with Jokic, who is a great player, but kind of lacks some athleticism, if you know what I mean. Aaron Gordon can jump above the rim. JaVale McGee is a great player, obviously, as a backup center. Started for, he's won 3 championships now with the Warriors and Lakers.
Yep.
So, he's got that championship pedigree. He knows his role. He's going to be a backup center there. He's going to be a great backup center because, like you said, or like I said earlier, he's a different kind of player than Jokic in terms of, athleticism. He can get above the rim, which is what the Nuggets are really, really lacking. These are great additions for this team.
And I've been saying, I think what the Denver Nuggets missed from last season is Jeremy Grant and Mason Plumlee. And Aaron Gordon and JaVale McGee were probably the 2 best replacements they could have found at the deadline. And they got those guys. I didn't think they gave up too much. I mean, first-round pick, obviously, you don't want to give up your first-round picks. But for a team looking to win now, go get Aaron Gordon, who's still pretty young and brings a lot to the table. And, maybe he's not a first, second, third option like he was with the Magic, but as a 4th, 5th, 6th option, fantastic for the Nuggets. And JaVale McGee, a guy who doesn't care how much points he scores, doesn't care about his stats. All he really cares about is winning. And that's what he's proven the last couple of years, winning with the Lakers and the Lakers and the Warriors, buying into his role, and brings that same athleticism and above the rim ability as Mason Plumlee does. I thought these are great additions. And like I've talked about, Denver's bench has always been super important to this team. They seemed a little thin at it. They seemed to only list out 7, 8 guys who can really play, but now they got 9 or 10 guys, and Mike Malone can really do what he wants with this team.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, obviously, Aaron Gordon's a huge addition because, like you said, he's not a great first option like he was in Orlando, or first or second option like he was in Orlando. But if you have him as your 4th or 5th option, he has not scored a lot in the games he's played with Denver, but he's had his presence felt. Like in a similar situation to Will Barton, his plus-minus has been really, really good because he's affecting the game in different ways and ways that don't necessarily show up on the stat sheet all the time. I think even just having that athletic ability to pair with a guy like Nikola Jokic, who that's definitely not his game, I think it matches up really well. And especially for the Nuggets, too, who aren't necessarily strapped for cash, but Aaron Gordon's a cheap addition, considering where he is athletically and, the kind of athleticism he brings to that team. He's a great fit for that team. He's not making too much money for them.
Yeah, only averaging 12.5 points since joining the Denver Nuggets. But, again, they don't really care about that. They already got their top 2 guys. The other one being Jamal Murray, who, of course, we called out on this podcast months ago saying he got off to a slow start. Maybe it was because he had that Disney hangover. I don't really know, because he was so freaking dominant in the bubble. But he's really started to pick up his stride, too. Do you think he's got to be like the key difference maker that puts the Nuggets over the top?
Absolutely, because if you're going to play well for this team in your Jamal Murray and his circumstance, you have to put up points as a shooter. And he pairs well with Nikola Jokic when he's at his best, and he's starting to play really, really well recently. And even in his last 3 games, he did 30, 23, and 22, shooting well from 3 again. That's what they need from him. They need him to be able to shoot, create his own shots, shoot well from beyond the arc, and he's doing that.
Yeah, Jamal Murray, again, another guy we call on the podcast. We know that you guys listen. We know you do. We call you out respectfully, not because we don't like your game. We just call it like we see it. So I know all these NBA people be listening, I swear. But yeah, Jamal Murray, playoff Murray's a real thing. Every playoffs, it seems like he always dominates. But looking at the postseason here, how far do you think Denver can advance? Can they make a similar run like they did last year?
I think it depends on who they play, man. If they're stuck at the 4 and 5 range and they end up playing the Lakers or Clippers in a 4-5 matchup, I think they lose. I think they lose, especially with the Lakers, with LeBron and AD fully healthy. I don't think that they're going to lose in the first round. There's just no way, and I think it's a tough matchup for the Nuggets too. We saw it last year in the Western Conference Finals. I think, unfortunately, the Nuggets just have a bad matchup in the first round. And I think if they do end up playing the Lakers or Clippers or even the Suns, I think it's a bad matchup for them. I think they lose in the first round.
Yeah, it's hard. I think all things equal, if everyone was healthy, let's say the Lakers somehow get the 4 or the 5, or maybe the Clippers drop down to the 4 or 5 with Denver, I do tend to agree with you. But I think there is a really weird scenario where Denver somehow makes the NBA Finals. It'd have to require the Lakers not being healthy, and like LeBron, Anthony Davis aren't healthy. Paul George isn't healthy for the Clippers. And let's not forget that the Denver Nuggets still have that mental edge over them. Utah's not as good as we think. Phoenix is inexperienced. and then somehow Denver just slides their way into the NBA Finals. I think there's a path. Do I see that all happening? Probably not. But I do think Denver is an improved team. I think that they're going to make it really tough on anybody. I could see them if maybe perhaps they pull off an upset against the Clippers. Maybe they beat Utah in the second round, and then they go to the Western Conference Finals and maybe lose to a team like the Lakers, or maybe they play the Lakers in the first round and the Lakers aren't healthy and they beat them and something. Like, I do see them being able to advance, but I do agree with you, Matt, that matchups are going to be super important in Denver's faith here.
Yeah, I think I will say if the Nuggets do win their first round series, which will be a tough first round series, no matter who they play, I think they match up really, really well with Utah. I think they actually would dominate Utah in the series, to be quite honest with you. I think they would slide right to the Western Conference Finals. I think Utah's a fraudulent team, especially in the playoffs. I think, the Nuggets could end up in the Western Conference Finals again if they do end up winning that first round matchup. But I just don't see them matching up well with any of those teams they could play in the first round.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you with that. I think that Denver could definitely cause some problems like they did in the playoffs last year. But we'll see. But I am very high on Denver. I do believe in this team. I'm not going to be sleeping on them like I did last year. Anyways, though, we talked about the Lakers and their struggles recently. Well, a lot of it has to do with the fact that LeBron James and Anthony Davis aren't playing. They're currently 32-19. That's good for fifth in the Western Conference, so they have dipped. Their record is 15-13 this year without Anthony Davis, 4-5 without LeBron, and in general, they are 15-26 without LeBron since he came to Los Angeles. So he does make a pretty big difference when he is on and off the court. However, though, light might be at the end of the tunnel. Anthony Davis could be coming back as soon as April 15th against the Celtics after the Lakers road trip is done. And LeBron James might be coming back from his sprained ankle by the end of April. Now, Kyle Kuzma's not even playing today either against Miami. So how do you think the Lakers are going to fare here without LeBron, Anthony Davis? And do you think that this is a team that can stay afloat?
Honestly, I think they're going to continue to struggle. They've continued to, struggle offensively and defensively without Anthony Davis and LeBron. They've struggled to get to 100 points even when without LeBron and AD. Dennis Schroeder's been playing well, and Montrezl Harrell's been playing well, but they just can't seem to, score enough points to remain competitive. I will say their defense has been pretty solid considering the circumstances, but offensively they're just really behind the eight ball here without their top two scorers. I think they'll stay afloat. I think they'll definitely still be a playoff team. They'll avoid the play-in tournament, all that jazz. But I think they could slump, and I think they could end up being the 5 or 6 seed in the Western Conference just because Anthony Davis and LeBron are out.
Yeah, I think people are like, wow, like the Lakers are supposed to be a deep team and stuff like that. I'm like, they are deep, but they don't have LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Are we forgetting how good those basketball players are and how much better you are when they're on the court? Come on, guys. But like you said, Harrell's played great statistically. So is Schroeder. So is Kyle Kuzma, Talen Horton-Tucker. All these guys have put up great numbers, but at the end of the day, they're role players. These are not guys that you want being your number 1, 2 options. They complement the star players really well and can do what they do best. But when asked to do more, they have risen up, but it's just not enough. Now, defensively, they've actually been one of the best defensive teams in the NBA with these two guys out still. Their defense has been very consistent, and the effort's there. It's not like they're not trying. But offensively, it is hard when you don't have a playmaker like LeBron or a guy like Anthony Davis where you can just throw the ball into him and he's going to get you an easy bucket. Now, they do have Andre Drummond now, who basically his toenail came off in the first game and missed some games. They also recently just signed Ben McLemore, too, both expected to play tonight against the Heat. By the time this podcast comes out, we would have seen what happened. But anyways, though, do you think those guys will make any significant addition? Maybe either now or maybe down the road?
I think Drummond will. I'm not sure about Ben McLemore. I think Ben McLemore could end up being cut by the time the playoffs come around.
Yeah.
But Andre Drummond, I think he could make a difference for this team, especially with LeBron and AD out. He'll still be able to get you a bunch of rebounds, maybe offensive glass as well. But like you said, Hunter, this team, it's a deep team when LeBron and AD are both playing. And with both of them out, this team is very thin just because, you can't rely on role players to be your first, second, third option, like you said. And I think, that's obviously why they're struggling. But I think, once LeBron and AD come back, I think this team will start to, get its feet back under them. I think they'll once again be a threat to win an NBA championship.
Yeah, and I think the Lakers, and I think they're playing it smart. You have no reason to rush LeBron and Anthony Davis back. They are both signed long term. The goal is to, build a dynasty, win championships, not to sell out for one. So I think they're playing it smart. They're doing the right thing. But once the band is back together, is this a team that you see that will be able to win the championship, or do you think that there might be some issues ahead?
I think they're going to have to get their feet back under them. I'm not saying it's a lock for them to advance to the NBA Finals because the Western Conference is so tough, man. It's really deep this year. I think they will get their feet back under them, especially, you can't doubt LeBron in the playoffs. I think they'll get their feet back under them. I think they could potentially make their way to the Western Conference Finals because I think, as we talked about, if they end up playing the Nuggets in the first round, I think they match up really well with the Nuggets, and I think they defeat them. And then, if they stay in the 4 and 5 slot, they would most likely play the Utah Jazz in the next round. I think they would smoke them. So I think there is definitely a clear route to the Western Conference Finals where they could potentially play Phoenix, who they think match up with really well, or they can play the other LA team, the Clippers, and I think they match up well with them, obviously too. It's tough to have a bad matchup when you have LeBron and AD on your team, but I think they do need to get their feet back under them. But I do think once they do, I think they're definitely a threat to get back to the NBA Finals.
I think the good thing is that they did have a good amount of sample size playing together because LeBron, it wasn't like they've been out the whole season. They've just been out for a little bit. So I do think that the Lakers could eventually find their groove again, but timing is everything. And if they don't do it, strike when the iron's hot, I think perhaps they could be in some trouble. We'll see though. But anyways, though, talking about the playoffs a little bit, me and Matt are each going to give a team we think might overachieve, exceed expectations. Maybe people don't think they'll do as good. And a team that we think is going to underachieve, a team we think is overrated. Matt, I'll let you go first. You can pick whichever one.
So I'm going to start with underachieve just because I like being pessimistic.
Okay.
Just kidding. But we've talked about them a little bit, and I really want to note this. The Utah Jazz, they'll win their first round series easily, I think, because I think, they'll just be too good for an 8 seed. But there's no doubt in my mind. I have zero confidence in them going any further than the first round. No matter who they play in the second round, I think they lose. Whether it's the Clippers, Nuggets, Lakers, whoever, even the Suns, I don't think they match up well with any of those teams. I think the Jazz are one of the most fraudulent teams in the NBA right now. Their record is very, very good, but they've caught a lot of breaks, honestly, and they're playing really well. They're a very deep team, but when it comes playoff time, man, I just don't think they have the star power to keep up.
Yeah, I do tend to agree with you. I think they're going to be a one and out team. They had a phenomenal regular season. Jordan Clarkson probably going to be 6th man of the year. Donovan Mitchell's had a great year. Rudy Gobert's been very good. They're a deep team. I saw you roll your eyes. But anyways, so yeah, I tend to agree. Who I wrote though, I wrote the Atlanta Hawks as a team. They're they're the 5 seed right now in the East.
Yeah, and Charlotte's the 4 seed. Yeah.
Yeah, that is sorry right now. But I think whoever they play, they're going to lose. I give them credit. They've played a lot better since, but I don't think that's a team that's going to make any noise in the playoffs. I think that they would lose to a Knicks team. They would lose to like the Heat or something like that. But if the Hawks don't stay at the 5 and they drop, they're going to play either the Nets, the Sixers, or the Bucks. And I wouldn't be shocked if they don't even get a game against them.
Yeah, I mean, they struggle defensively. Obviously, they struggle defensively. Trae Young's your point guard. He's not very good on the defensive side. He'll score 30 points a game, but he's not going to play any good defense. The Hawks have been playing a lot better. They've kind of shut you up a bit in terms of that. You did say they were one of the worst teams in the NBA, and they did have a weird free agency, which they did, but they've kind of put it together here since Lord Pierce has been fired. Whatever. And I think the Hawks, like you said, I think they're an easy first-round exit. I think they are. I even think the Hornets are a lot better than them. I think the Hornets are a deeper team than they are.
And they don't even have their best player, or arguably their best player, LaMelo Ball. Gordon Hayward's really good, too. He's out, too. And yet they're still somehow sitting at the 4. I applaud Charlotte, man. Good shout out to them for staying in there despite all the injuries they've had.
It's the power of their announcers, man, I'm telling you.
Yeah, the great duo right there. I remember we highlighted that a couple weeks back when we gave our All-NBA announcers team. Anyways, though, I guess give us an overachieving team, a team flying under the radar.
I'm going to go with the Dallas Mavericks. Star power plays a huge role in the playoffs, and Doncic and Pingus Tingus are a great star duo. Right now, they would match up with the Phoenix Suns in the first round, and I think that's a good matchup for them, and I think they could potentially upset the Suns in the first round. I don't know about them going any further than that, but I do see them as a potential first-round upset team. Hunter, don't make that face at me.
Tingus? Are you what?
Yeah. Pingus Ting.
What? Is that from something? You just made that one
Yeah,
up.
it's from the video when Porzingis got drafted, and the Knicks fan is like, who did they take? Is that Pingus Tingus from Latvia? Oh my goodness, the New York Knicks done it again.
Okay, yeah, I guess I don't remember that one, but that's pretty funny. I just remember Stephen A. Smith just flipping out in first take. All I'm gonna say is that in my mock draft, I had them taking Porzingis. I didn't think it was a bad pick at the time. Just saying. Anyways, though, a team that I think could potentially overachieve, also in the Western Conference, also has star power, and that's the Portland Trail Blazers. I think they're a really, really good team. I don't agree with the Gary Trent Jr. trade, but Norman Powell is a good player, and I'm sure he's going to help out. But they're really explosive. CJ McCollum was on a pace to be an all-star lock this year, and unfortunately got hurt and missed some time. Damian Lillard, I actually think if it's not Nikola Jokic for MVP, it might be Dame Lillard. He has been phenomenal this season. I feel like he's someone who might end up winning an MVP at some point because he is such a freaking good basketball player. This is a deep team. They got big men. They got guys who can guard in the wing. They got shot creators. Really well head coach by Terry Stotts. I like Portland, and they're tough too. They'll give a team problems. If they play a team like Denver, I think if they even play a team like the Clippers, they can make it really tough on them. I think Portland's going to be a really hard out and could potentially upset a team too.
Wow, I mean, a Blazers Clippers first round series would be awesome, especially with all the history there with Damian Lillard and Paul George. I think it'd be great. Yeah, that'd be a great series, man. I honestly, Damian Lillard, you cannot count him out, man. I mean, he's gonna ball in the playoffs. He did it last year, even against the Lakers, when his team was severely outmatched. He still played really, really well in that series. I think the biggest problem with the Blazers, even in the past couple of years, has been health. If they stay healthy, they're definitely a great team, and they're going to give any team matchup nightmares, and they'll take any team 7 games. But as you've said, CJ McCollum missed a lot of time this year. Who knows if he stays on the court? Yusuf Nurkic has had injury issues, obviously. Robert Covington has been able to stay on the court, which has been huge. I think if they stay healthy, I think, yes, they could definitely overachieve. But I think the biggest issue for them is health. And it's a big if, staying healthy.
It's a big if. But Portland, too, also they got Melo there with plenty of playoff experience, too. I just really like Portland. They're dogs. And I feel like they're a team that's like a by any means necessary, we're going to get the job done. I'm telling you, I mean, like we talk about how deep the Western Conference is, I don't think any team wants to play Portland first round.
Absolutely not. And that's, part of just being a deep Western Conference team. I think in the East, I think they would easily be the 4th seed at least. And I think they would give anybody matchup nightmares in the East. But unfortunately, they do play on the West Coast. They do play in Oregon, which is unfortunate enough as it is. But I think they are tough out, like you said. And I think no matter who they play first round, I think they could easily go 7 games.
I think so, too. I think Portland, again, they kind of struck lightning in a bottle. They played a really tough Lakers team, and they probably weren't going to win any more than a game or 2. And that's what happened. They won, and, Lakers got a gentleman's sweep in 5. But I think Portland this time could maybe, flip the script a little bit. We'll see. Anyway,
and let's not forget though, Hunter, too. Like they just made the Western Conference Finals 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
They got smoked. They got smoked by the Warriors, but they did just make the Western Conference Finals. So don't count them out.
Yeah, I think health's definitely going to be the biggest difference for them. We'll see. And maybe they'll even climb up the standing. Maybe they'll get a home series too. That wouldn't shock me at all. And it is tough to play in Moda Center, let me tell you. Anyways, though, we're going to go to our All-NBA teams like we do on every single podcast. That's our tradition. We're going to be All-NBA uniforms team. Shout out to Zach Gershman because he gave us that idea. He brought it up to me once. He's like, you guys should do that. I'm like, you know what? I'm with it. I think that's pretty dope. So we're going to start off here. We're going to do all time. So some of our favorite jerseys ever in NBA history. Matt, I'll let you go first here.
I think this is probably the first one I thought of when we thought of this list. And it's the Raptors 90s jerseys with the purple uniforms with the dinosaur on them. They called them the dino jerseys, I'm pretty sure, which is awesome. Yeah. I just remember Vince Carter rocking that jersey when he did the dunk contest. That's just like the main thing that sticks out in my mind when I think of these jerseys. They're awesome, man. They got the kind of like the zaggy pinstripes. They kind of look pretty cool. They look like a dinosaur clawed on them. I think black nameplate is really, really cool. And like I said, man, just picturing Vince Carter fly through the airs in these Johns. I mean, they're like a top 5 day drinking on a Saturday jersey. Like you see these jerseys all the time at Penn State, everywhere on a Saturday afternoon. And as they should, that jersey is awesome.
Yeah, I think the fact that you can like point to a specific thing like Vince Carter's 2000 dunk contest, just shows you how awesome these jerseys are. Of course, Matt, that was the first one literally on my list too. Those are they're sick. The colorways, the Raptors have always had really cool jerseys, but that one's definitely the cream of the crop. Next on my list, and this is a pretty popular one too. I wouldn't be shocked you have it. But they brought the jerseys back, I believe last season. They're still rocking them today. That's the Vancouver Grizzlies jerseys. I think the teal ones are just absolute fire. Seeing John Morant wearing those, dunking and stuff. And of course, shout out to guys like Mike Bibby. He used to wear them back in the day too.
Yeah.
I always like blue. Blue's like kind of my favorite color. But those Vancouver Grizzlies, now Memphis Grizzlies jerseys are pretty sick.
Yeah, it's kind of a crime we didn't get to see the grit and grind era Grizzlies teams wear those jerseys, because those jerseys are awesome, man. I kind of hate their jerseys now. They're so bland and boring, and I think the name underneath the numbers now is like too popular of a thing in the NBA. I kind of hate it. But I think those jerseys are awesome, man. It was also on my list. It's an incredible jersey. I think the Grizzlies should go back to wearing those kind of jerseys full time, because it's classic, man. I think honestly, you could look at pretty much any team and their '90s jerseys and be like, you should stick to those.
Yeah, I also really like the black jerseys of those too. Those are pretty sick.
Yeah, I think those are their like city editions this year, aren't they?
Might be, yeah, because they change them up a little bit every year. But yeah, anytime they wear those jerseys, it's just different. And they also have like those like that accents on the shorts and like where the sleeves are. It's like this little like tile print. It's like a burgundy and like yellow. It's hard to explain, but it's a really nice detail. We talk about how detailed the Raptors jerseys are. Kind of the same thing with the Grizzlies, and also it's got the bear coming out too. Now the Grizzlies have that little like cute cub. So yeah, it's definitely not the same. But anyways, Matt, what else is on your list? Was that one on your list or no?
Yeah, it was. So I think we've both had the same two, right? So this is my third jersey. I'm gonna go with the black Miami Vice jerseys. The Miami Vice jersey has been one of the best city edition jerseys they've had over the past couple of years, but I think this year they kind of overdid it with the blue and pink. I don't like those at all. I think they're. What do you say?
You seen them on the court before?
Yeah.
Oh God, it's awful.
Yeah, it's pretty disgusting. Their blue jerseys were cool, but the pink jerseys were all right. But the black ones, man, in D Wade's final year, I like the Raptors Vince Carter jersey. I have a vivid memory of them wearing the black Miami Vice jersey with Dwayne Wade jumping up on the scorer's table after the game winner against Golden State, the stacked Golden State team with Kevin Durant still there. Those jerseys were awesome to me, man. Anytime you can put, any black jersey to me is really cool, but, black and light blue and pink, it's a weird combination, but it worked so well. And I wish they would stick to those jerseys for their Vice jerseys.
Yeah, I think they should perhaps get away from the Vice City editions next year just because of what happened this year. Yeah, maybe we should go somewhere else. But yeah, the Vice jerseys, that whole collection is so sick. I've always loved the Heat's jerseys. I think like they've had so many cool jerseys, like the white out ones, the all black ones, and their regular ones I think are some of the coolest in the league too.
Absolutely. I mean, you have a lot to work with a team like the Heat. Like there's so many different directions you can go with that. And, even just thinking LeBron era, when they had some of the cool throwback jerseys with like the red and like the three-dimensional letters kind of thing, I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, they've always had some of the nicest threads in the NBA. Next on my list here is going to be the Black Bulls jerseys with the red pinstripes. And you talk about a vibe. I just think like Michael Jordan, like absolute killer on the basketball court. And I think those are some of the hardest jerseys. I think out of the list I have, those ones are just straight, just like, oh God, like it's a vibe. It's like gritty and stuff, but it's also flashy and nice. I like the Bulls jerseys a lot too, but those ones are definitely my favorite. And I like the way it complements each other and stuff. Those are some of the cleanest jerseys I've seen.
Yeah, the Bulls, I mean, they just have classic uniforms to begin with. There's nothing you can go wrong with white, red, and black. It's a great color combination. But those black jerseys, man, like you said, they just hit different, especially with Michael Jordan era. Like, you just saw them coming out of the locker room in those jerseys. You just kind of think the game's over already. It's like a mental edge. I mean, those jerseys were sick, man. They brought them back here this year, right? With the I know they have the black jerseys. I don't know if they have the pinstripes this year. But the black jerseys are back and they're pretty cool. But the pinstripes, man, they were really, really awesome. They should go back to wearing those for like an alternate jersey. Those are really cool.
Yeah, they definitely did bring them back at some point. I know that. But I'm not sure if it's this year or last year. I gotta check. But yeah, those are definitely some of my favorite jerseys in NBA history. But Matt, what else for you?
I've got the Penny and Shaq era pinstripe Magic jerseys. This is such an underrated jersey to me because you don't really think of like the Magic very often because they're just such an irrelevant team now. But back then when they had Penny and Shaq, that 30 for 30 they did for Penny and Shaq was a really good documentary. And you just saw the jerseys all the time. And, it didn't matter where they were, the white ones, the blue ones, the black ones. They were all super, super cool. And they went away from it for some stupid reason. And their jerseys now are horrendous, absolutely terrible. But oh my God, they're horrendous. But the ones from the late '90s with Shaq, oh God, those were awesome. I think they should bring those back. That I keep saying it with like all these '90s jerseys. I think they just did it right back then, and now it's just Nike's trying too hard, or I don't know. I think they just need to go back to the classics, man.
Yeah, I wonder how much of it's nostalgia and how much is like, nah, these jerseys are just like nice as hell. I actually think it's the latter. I like some of their team's jerseys, but I do think they kind of overdo it too much. Try too hard to be like hip and cool, and it just kind of looks as a result.
Yeah, I feel like teams right now are just like trying to be too modern, I guess. But these '90s jerseys, man, they just did it right. It was so like it was a blend of simple and like complexity, but the complexity wasn't too much, like even for example, like the Heat jerseys now, the Vice jerseys, like it's like I feel like they're trying too hard to be cool, and it's just like they overdid the complexity. And I think there's just like something to be said about simplicity and complexity, just like a nice blend there.
And I like the complexity. I like how like they give thought into the jerseys and stuff. I think that's cool. Instead of just being like, wear this. I guess say what you want about David Stern, but he had drip. Yeah, he's walking in puddles basically. Anyways, though, next on my list is also going to be a throwback jersey. And that's going to be the Pac-Man red Atlanta Hawks jerseys where it says the big Hawks across the chest. And my vibe is just Dominique Wilkins just throwing them down, doing the up and under dunks and the windmills and stuff like that. And with power, Spud Webb also tlike little guy getting up there. So, yeah, I think those jerseys, I think the Hawks, I like the jerseys they have now. Those weird, like graphic.
Radiant, yeah.
Those are weird. I like their jerseys now, though. They kind of went back to like the red and yellow. I think that's definitely the route to go down. But I do really like their Pac-Man jerseys. I think those are super cool. And you talk about like throwback jerseys. I feel like you see that one all the time too when you're at front row in Penn State.
I was gonna say that, Hunter. Yeah, that's definitely a day drinking jersey. Is an old Dominique Wilkins jersey. I love those uniforms as well. I will say the Hawks did get it right, switching back to that kind of color scheme this year. Those old ones with like the neon, oh God, those were terrible. But yeah, those jerseys were awesome. And I also think of Dominique Wilkins in the dunk contest. I think of Spud Webb trying to get up there to dunk. I love those jerseys as well. There's nothing bad you can say about them.
I like their city jerseys the last couple of years too. They got the Peachtree ones, and then they got the Martin Luther King ones, I believe, are this year. They got nice jerseys. I think Hawks probably got some of the nicest jerseys in the NBA right now.
I think so too.
But what's next on your list?
So the last one I have is obviously I'm a Homer guy. This was my backup in case you stole one of mine. And it's the 2000s Allen Iverson black Sixers jerseys. I think those were another sense of they were just trying, to be simple, and it ended up working so well. And you think of the Sixers now with the white, red, and blue. Obviously, you think, black probably wouldn't work with that, but it just did for some reason. And the court was kind of ugly that went with it, but the Allen Iverson step over, man, it's just a lot of nostalgia around that jersey, especially for me being a Sixers fan. There's a lot of roots with that, and Sixers fans on Twitter have been crying to this team to try to bring back the 2001 black jerseys just for 1 year as an alternate. And we thought we were getting it this year with the black jerseys, but instead we got Boathouse Row on a jersey, which would, they've kind of grown on me, but it's fine. But the old black ones, man, that you just couldn't go wrong with them.
Yeah, those are some of the nicest jerseys too. They had like the gold in them, and I think that's why it worked, because it wasn't as much like red, white, and blue, is more black and gold, which is not necessarily what the Sixers are, but the jerseys look nice. So I guess that's all that matters. And yeah, you think about Allen Iverson in the early 2000s, what he was able to do, definitely a vibe. Last but not least on my list, and this is one I think is a little underrated. I'm going with the Navy alternate Cavs jerseys from when LeBron was on the team. I thought those were always super nice. Again, pretty simple. It was like their alternate jerseys. It wasn't even like a special jersey they wore, but they had like their they call it wine and gold, on the sleeves, that accent. They had the Cavaliers across the chest. I thought those were some of the hardest jerseys. They got rid of them as soon as LeBron left because I guess they wanted to rebrand or something like that. But God, those jerseys, even like the wine color ones, and as well as the white, the home ones, they're a little more like wine and gold. But when they were, wine, navy blue, and white, I thought that's when they had the nicest jerseys.
I think so too. I think their jerseys are another, I think they're another example of their jerseys now being pretty trash, and they tried to overcomplicate it. Even when LeBron came back the second time, I thought those jerseys were fine, but again, they fluffed that up. But I think the old alternate blue ones, I mean, you just couldn't go wrong with those, man. LeBron looked so good in them too. A young LeBron flying over you with his, dunking all over you with his, oh God, he was so good. And those jerseys look really, really good. I think that is an underrated one too. I think a lot of people forget about that when they talk about some of the nicest jerseys of all time. And I did like the sleeves that you brought up too. I did like that addition.
Yeah. Also have, I don't want to say breaking news, but the Lakers, they will unveil their 2019-2020 championship banner on May 12th. They have not done it yet. It's going to be in front of fans at the Staples Center. Now, due to the pandemic, a lot of things have changed. There hasn't been the big parades. There hasn't been these guys going on talk shows, going to Disney. I guess they were at Disney. But, it didn't really happen a whole lot. No shirtless JR this year. Oh, no, he did take his shirt off in the bubble. He did.
Yeah.
Before the game even ended. But anyways, though, I guess it's good. Like we talked about, NBA is expected to have full fans, full arenas next season. But it's good to see that we're starting to see a lot more things opening up. And, of course, they're having fans in stadiums now and stuff like that, too.
Yeah, May 12th. I think that's probably their last home game, right? Like right before the playoffs. So I think that's a good way to do it. I think it's a good sentimental there, especially with the playoffs. They don't know what their seeding will be. But I think that's a cool way to do it. I think that fans did need to see that in person. I think that's definitely something. You could do ring night without the fans, I guess. But having the banner unveiled, I think that's something cool to say for when fans are there.
Definitely gonna, cherish that moment when I see it happen. But anyways, though, that's gonna wrap it up here on Ball Don't Lie. I want to say it's episode like 43 or 44. I don't exactly remember. I usually check before these, but I did not this week. My apologies. Again, like we've always talked about, we get this done by any means necessary. I was in a storage closet last week. We're actually recording this on a Thursday because Wednesday was Wellness Day. We didn't have school. Matt was on the road traveling, stuff like that. But we always get that content out by any means necessary. So we always appreciate you guys for the support because we wouldn't do it without you.
Thank you. See you.
Thank you for watching this edition of Penn State Sports Night. If you're a fan of our content, please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more clips. Also, follow us on Twitter at PSSN TV and on Instagram at PSU Sports Night to keep up with all the action. For all my colleagues, we are Penn State Sports Night.